I had the pleasure of seeing Gorkan speak at an event in March that one of our customers hosted. I was blown away by his amazing knowledge, his style, and his absolutely wonderful hair, because I'm losing mine. But Gorkan is a lecturer at University College London, but he's also one of the co-founders of Meta Profiling, a business that looks at assessment data and interest in technology. And I think you'll find, I'll let you decide for yourself, that Gorkan's passion for what he does really reflects in his knowledge as well. I think there's some really interesting ideas from what Gorkan sees every day and works with that absolutely can affect the future of our business. Please put your hands together for Gorkan.
Thanks for the kind introduction and for inviting me. So today I'll talk about quality data, what it is, and how I get it. You've probably heard a lot about the term quality data, usually used sort of next to big data. So when you hear big data, you also hear quality data. What I want to talk about in this session is, well, I will suggest that quality data is not something that you can see real time. It's not something that you can judge just by looking at the data. You need to go through a process in order to be able to judge that. And I think all organizations need to go through that process to be able to judge that for themselves. Okay, I'll talk about that in a bit. So I've been in assessment for many years. Like Johnny said, I'm a co-founder of a company called Meta Profiling. We do assessment, or we provide assessment solutions across 12 countries. I've done it on a consultancy capacity, and also I've done research on it. So being a lecturer or a full-time academic as well, I do a lot of research on psychological profiling assessment. And I've even written a book about assessment. And in my experience, there's something that I see continuously, which surprises me, but I nevertheless see it. And that's the fact that people don't actually do much about quality of the data and don't know much about the quality of the data that they have in organizations. What do I mean by that? So what are the problems that we have? I think the first one is that we actually don't record much of the data a lot of the time in assessment. So the most common method will be interviews. Often that's actually just subjective judgments, which isn't necessarily a problem. You get a lot of data, rich data from interviews, but we don't actually record our intuition. So we have intuitions about people, we don't record those intuitions. So it's subjective. We don't record the intuitions, we can't actually tell whether that's an accurate intuition or not. And you might think, well, usually, and this is not only interviews, by the way, this is when we judge CVs, when we judge a LinkedIn profile, a Facebook profile, whatever it may be, usually we make judgments without recording our intuition. We may think our intuition is good, we are trained, so we have good intuitions, but there's also another sort of psychological fact about human beings is that we have quite gullible judgments, okay? We are biased. I'll just show you what I mean. This is just for interviews. Some common biases that we see in interviews. Female interviewers tend to be more lenient. There are sex stereotypes, of course, so people will generally judge males to be more leader-like. Early impressions are more consequential than our facts. Contrast effect, after a weaker candidate, the candidate will usually be rated as more strongly or better. Attractiveness, more attractive people will be rated better unless you're too attractive, which is actually sort of detrimental. Obese people will be rated worse, etc., etc. So there are quite a few biases. I like this one in particular. This is a study of 8 parole judges, and the study looked at the probability of a favorable decision as a function of time of day. Okay, so this is just telling you about the sort of biases of people and the context. So after a break, the probability of a favorable decision is 65%. Before the break is 5 to 10%. And this is not chance, obviously. The sort of statistical significance is quite major. So we do have these biases. A lot of people sort of turn to psychometric tests, say, well, here's data, and here's something that looks objective to me. I mean, it tells me how a person has scored on certain dimensions. It tells me whether that person is suitable or not. Often that's just false comfort, really. There are many reasons for that, but you know, a lot of psychometric tests aren't actually based on very solid empirical grounds or theoretical grounds. B, just because it sounds nice doesn't mean that it's good. So there's a big hype about emotional intelligence, for instance, but when you look at correlations between emotional intelligence tests and performance, they're quite low. And finally, even if it worked for other people or other organizations, it doesn't necessarily work for you. So there are quite a few shortcomings even with psychometric tests, unless you use them right, of course. So what is ideal, or what is data? What is good quality data if we can't get it from the sources I mentioned? The way I like to look at it is think about the ideal. What would be the ideal high quality data, like super high quality data? What would that be? And then you can work your way down to a kind of realistic scenario. So what would super high quality data be about a person? Well, clearly that would be data that can predict with 100% accuracy how a person will perform at the job, right? So this is an example here. So this is, imagine you have a test score, whether that's one test or a score that you got from a multiple tests, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever, but you get a test score from 1 to 100. And this is a car sales person or scenario. So the ideal high quality data would be a test score of 100 predicts that a person will sell 100 cars. A test score of 10 predicts that a person will sell 10 cars. A test score of 50 predicts that he will sell 50 cars, right? So that's perfect correlation. That's the ideal high quality data. You can take it to other occupations. So let's say a factory worker, how many errors have they made? A test score of 100 means 0 errors. A test score of 50 means 50 errors. A test score of 0 means 100 errors, okay? Academics, a test score of 100, 10 publications a year. A test score of 1 publication a year, etc., etc. You can see the point, right? So this is the ideal scenario. It's fictitious. We can't get it. We can't be 100% accurate. But a realistic scenario, so what is a realistic scenario? I think a realistic scenario is something like 80%. We can say with 80% accuracy, I can say that a person scoring 100 on a test, say, will sell 70 cars or above. This is 80% chance that that will happen. That's a realistic scenario. But the question is, how many of us actually do that? How many of us can actually say we have that, the 80% accuracy in predicting how many cars a person will sell, or how many publications, or whatever that is, that performance measure? How many of us in our organization are able to have that accuracy? So how do we get to that accuracy? So if that's what we want, if we want that kind of realistic scenario, how do we get to that accuracy? It's a function of two things, really. We need to have decided what we are looking for, and we need to have decided how we are going to look for that thing. So are we looking for a car salesman? It could be social skills, right? That's what we want to kind of assess. And then how do we assess it? I don't know, through LinkedIn, through interviews, simulations, whatever it may be. So we need to have decided these two things. And obviously, the main thing here is that both of these things will be determined, or the quality of the data that we get from here will be determined by how accurately, at the end of the day, once you've done that assessment about the person, how accurately are you able to predict how they will perform, how many cars they will sell, how many errors they will make, okay? And today we have a lot of tests out there, you know, a plethora of kind of ways of assessing people. These are the kind of traditional ones. And now we have the more kind of, you know, online reputation, social data, and all that. So we have a lot of data out there, and the question is, how do we determine the quality of that data? Okay, so take LinkedIn as an example. we have plenty of kind of things that we can look at. Very rich data, you know, activity, number of connections, profile strengths, experience, you know, who are they following, how many changes have they made, etc., etc. So we have rich sources of data online in quite a few places. Then we have people doing kind of algorithms for you. This is Twitter profile, you know, based, so kind of saying this is the kind of interest that the person is likely to have compared to others, and that's a function of the tweets. And then we have people who are doing linguistic analytics, so looking at blogs or emails or whatever, any written content, and analyzing that and saying, well, this person is likely to be this way based on what they've written. So we have all these methods for analyzing or for kind of getting an assessment of a person. But again, how do we know whether that is quality data? How do we know that that is quality data? Some steps have been taken towards this. So this is Facebook's likes. I think Johnny just talked about this. You know, how does it correlate with personality traits? This is just psychometric tests, but then also like some demographic variables and intelligence. You know, so here's just a correlation with a facet called, or a trait, personality trait called openness. So people who tend to be high on openness tend to also like things like Oscar Wilde, Charles Bukowski, etc. And you can see what they like if they're low or conservative. This is some steps towards it. This is actually satisfaction of life. So people who are satisfied with life tend to like Sarah Palin. I don't know why. It's quite interesting. I wonder what the psychology behind that is. So you have that. And like I said, you have the text analytics, so IBM, personality insight demonstration. You can put any text in there, and they will give you, you know, a kind of personality profiling. Okay? That sounds really good, right? So you have a picture of the person just, you know, by algorithms, by automation. That's really good. But again, how do we actually, and I think, obviously, I think this is going to be the future of assessment with algorithms and automized kind of ways of doing it. Social talent is obviously leading the way on this, in this way. But how do we determine the quality of this data? Like how good is knowing that a person is, you know, 94% on X or Y? Like what is the quality of that? How good is that data? And the way to look at it is, again, I think the only way you can determine that is by knowing, you know, whether this profile can tell me with a certain amount of accuracy how many cars a person will sell, right? So that's what I really want to know. That's really what quality is about. So take, you know, different assessment methods as an example. This is the kind of graph that I will show to kind of make the point. So you have interviews, psychometric tests, and Facebook likes. This is personal data about a person. We know that psychometric tests correlate with Facebook likes, but that doesn't really tell us anything about the quality of that data. The quality is determined primarily by looking at how does it actually predict performance. This is a hypothetical scenario, right? How does it predict sales, innovation, productivity, turnover, promotions, absenteeism, on-time delivery, etc., etc. So if this is a hypothetical scenario, so we have interviews and psychometric tests predicting fairly well, but Facebook likes not predicting very well. So the data isn't that high quality at the end of the day. We could have a hypothetical scenario where LinkedIn profile suddenly predicts good stuff here, Twitter profile predicts good stuff, online reviews predict good stuff. Or we can have something like this. Again, another hypothetical scenario. The thing is, we can't know this unless we test it, right? We don't know this unless we have that performance data. As it happens, Facebook likes actually correlate with objective things like gender, like sexual orientation, like race. And this is, you know, 0.93, 0.95. These are nearly perfect correlations. So you can predict really, really well, you know, certain demographic variables. IQ, an objective kind of testing measure, so you can predict a person's IQ. Imagine if we could do that with performance. Imagine if we could actually have Facebook likes and performance. It doesn't sound, that ridiculous, does it? But in essence, that's really what we would probably want to do. That's really where we would probably get sort of high quality data. If you think about it, this is what we want to get to. This is the ideal in terms of assessing the quality of the data. Okay, so how do I get to the quality of the data? So what are the means by which I get there? I think there are three very simple steps. I think the first thing is we need to start ranking things. It's the most basic thing, and a lot of organizations don't actually do it. So even just a basic 1 to 100 ranking after an interview is better than just your subjective judgments which have no ranking. So if I judge someone to be 80 out of 100 or 100, then later I can actually say, well, did the person I ranked as 100 actually turn out to be the best performer? Did the person who I ranked as 80 perform better than who I ranked as 60? If that works, then you're doing a good job. But if there's inconsistencies or consistent inconsistencies, then clearly something is wrong. So start ranking things. Obviously, you want to not just rank one thing. Probably you want to rank different things in terms of, say, a Facebook profile, different areas of the Facebook profile, 1 to 100 or 1 to 10, whatever it is. You want to rank those things and then relate them to performance data. I think this is the critical bit. So you relate them to performance data after. So now you have data on personal profile or the person, and then you have performance data and how those relate. So imagine if we could just take, some performance data is difficult to measure, but if we could just sort of relate some of the personal data to some of these things and then be able to say, well, that personal data is able to predict with 80% accuracy, things like sales. Like we can increase sales by 20%. We can increase all of these things by 20%, reduce some of these things by 20%. That would have a huge impact on the bottom line. Then we're getting really serious. Then we're getting quite serious about the data that we have and the impact that we have on organizations. Okay, so to conclude, I have two of them. The first thing is we judge a lot of the data is processed subjectively, and we don't actually record it. We base it on our intuition. Our intuition can be right often, but often they're also wrong. So we know 60% of managers fail, and this is often due to selection decisions, really. I think we overestimate our intuitions a lot of the time, but we can improve our intuition by ranking stuff and by relating those things to performance. I think this is a perfect time to be able to do that now, because we have companies that provide algorithms to give you information about people. And we have plenty of kind of companies doing linguistic analytics, Facebook likes, whatever it may be, that give you algorithms about people. I think the next step is to include performance data in those algorithms. So a judgment about whether a person is suitable for a particular role should be based on whether people with a similar profile have actually performed well before in that organization. So the output should be something like this. You get a profile, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, any social media, interview, simulations, whatever assessment you're doing, you get a score at the end, a profile at the end that is based on performance data, and you get this output. This person has a similar social media profile to the bottom 20% of salespeople in your organization. Now that's a reject straight away. Or you get something like 90% of people with this social media profile went on to become amongst the top 30% in terms of sales in your organization. Now this is long-term prediction, so you have long-term data there. I think this is really the ideal, and this is where we can get really serious about the quality of the data. If this is what we really want, quality data, I think that's the process that we need to go through. And I think technology is here. Social talent has really brought technology into recruitment and assessment. I think that's a massive step. I think the next thing will be to include performance data in the algorithms that we have. All right, that's all I have to say, I think.